Full-time Devils, huge debate time. What is the biggest problem at Man United? I mean, everyone on this video would probably agree that it's the Glazers, the owners, but we're going to make things a little bit different. We're going to make things interesting. We're giving everyone different opinions. Yes, that's right. We're talk sporting it up today. So, Adam Mckola, you're fighting the corner of saying the Glazers are the biggest problem at the club, correct?
That's easy.
Fucking tapping.
Hey,
Correct.
Open that, exactly.
Easy one for him, innit?
We did figure this out before. We haven't just made Gaz select things because we know Gaz is a bit.
Yeah, I just, it depends what mood
You've got
I'm
the
in,
Glazers
really.
and I've got the
Yeah.
£8.50.
Wait, we didn't figure this out. You figured it out.
So hang on, right. Adam's arguing, saying the Glazers are the biggest problem with the club. Howson, you're arguing that Woodward is the biggest problem with the club, right? Correct.
It was either that or the £8.50 meal deal, but yeah, okay.
How is that a deal? It does my head in. Jay, what are you arguing? That Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is the biggest problem?
Well,
with Man
I think
United
Ole
right
and the
now?
players, yeah, basically, which is just what I wanted to argue.
Right, okay, yeah.
Nice one.
You've really drawn the short straw on
Glazer
this.
stooge, Jay.
Right under the bus here.
I can't believe you're going to have an entire video here and defend the Glazers.
I'd love that. Guys, get ready.
like
Get ready in the comments. It's going to be fun.
Clipped up and I'm going to get done for
Right,
it.
Howson,
Is
let's...
it called Jay Glazer as well?
Possibly.
Probably, yeah, it's my cousin.
Howson, let's start with
So,
you, mate. Why is
real-
Ed Woodward the biggest problem with Man United? And if we got rid of him tomorrow, why would all of our fortunes reverse?
I think it's quite obvious if you look at the tenure of Ed Woodward, which coincided with Sir Alex leaving, and more importantly, possibly David Gill leaving. The finishes under Ed Woodward have been absolutely embarrassing. Sir Alex and David Gill shown that with a good management team, you can actually perform under the restrictions of the Glazers if you've got a good manager and a good CEO. Ed Woodward, since he's taken over, has proven that he doesn't have a fucking pot of glue what's going on. And because of that, we've lurched from one manager and one philosophy to the next. And under him, we've failed to get into Champions League football 4 times. We've come like 7th, 5th, 4th, all sorts of all over the place. Haven't put a decent title challenge together just once. And for me, I think that the Glazers can probably sit there and go, we've given you $1 billion in the last 6 years. It's been mismanaged and misspent. If that had been spent by someone with a bit of an idea about football, a philosophy that was all down the same track, Manchester United would probably be competing right now with $1 billion spent on them. However, because you've got that fucking clown in charge, we're 2 points off relegation, and Jay's now got to argue while Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's the problem.
Oh, we're going to save that till the end of the video, I think, just because I'm really looking forward
I leave?
to that. I'm really looking forward to that. How can say if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer does get sacked, and I'm of the opinion that that's something that's going to happen at some point this season, how can Ed Woodward survive another manager?
Because he makes loads of money for the Glazers and all they care about is money.
I know, but mate, and surely it becomes financial issue if we finish outside the top 4.
There's an interesting article about that in The Athletic saying that the rise of Manchester United's finances was actually already happening before Woodward took over, and that he's just basically jumped on this crest of a wave. So United went from earning 58 million or something in 98 to 231 million by 2003, which is obviously nothing to do with Ed Woodward. And then by the time he's coming in 2005, it keeps rising and he can take credit for it. But the Glazers are out of touch with the football club. If they're just seeing the profits that keep going up, they're getting more money. They're probably happy with it.
There's been one commercial deal which has been mind-blowing, which has happened underneath the Glazers. And that was selling the naming rights to the training ground. That was legitimately genius because no one's allowed and it's down a private pissing road. So selling the naming rights to that was genius. Everything else has been done before or bettered by other clubs around the country and around Europe. So there's absolutely fuck all groundbreaking that's happened. If he was truly groundbreaking, Manchester United would have our own Netflix where you'd pay 99p to watch any game in United's history, and it'd been bringing in more fucking money than Google right now.
Absolutely correct. And I understand why Manchester United aren't doing this, by the way, but I go to City's training ground and I see like all the clubs on the wall, just when you're doing a bit of work there and stuff. And you see all the clubs on the wall and you're like, they literally own all these clubs. This is like a big sort of conglomerate that they're doing.
And
The
it's
City
not
group.
dodgy at all, is it? When
It's
Frank
a little bit
when
dodgy.
Frank Lampard signs for New York, and then all of
Yeah.
a sudden a week later they think, we need a midfielder.
My favourite story from that, by the way, is when they signed. There's a rule that A-League players can't sign for other A-League teams. So what they did is they took a player from the A-League, then loaned him back to their other A-League team, which it's dodgy stuff. But it did get me thinking that in terms of like what we're actually doing, there is nothing groundbreaking. There is nothing new that we're doing. It's just Ed Woodward getting deals at the biggest fucking sports team in the world. It's going to be dead easy.
We got a big sponsor. Like we've never had one of them before.
And even
the
Chevrolet's...
Vodafone one was record-breaking, and the Nike one was record-breaking prior to Adidas and Chevrolet coming in. This is fucking Manchester United. If you can't sell the Manchester United brand, then you're an idiot. And it's as simple as that. Whether we was being successful on the pitch or not, at the time that he took over in 2013, we'd recently just been in a handful of Champions League finals. We should have been able to sell anything to anybody. You should have been able to walk through Tesco without seeing fucking dog bowls with Manchester United crests on them. But did you? No, because he's not that good.
Right, hang on a minute. We've all just agreeing with Steer.
Yeah, well, I think...
No one's... isn't someone... The point of this that we argue with him that...
You know what? The point of this...
Even though I do agree
the
with
point
him,
of this
like,
is really a debate, but I have a feeling there's going to be bits of everyone's argument
well,
that we all agree
one thing I
with
will say, right?
It's not one big problem at United,
playing devil's advocate about the thing with the managers. Did any of us really moan when those managers came in? When Moyes was replaced by Van Gaal, did we go, that's a bad move? When Mourinho came in, did we go, that's a bad move? When Mourinho got sacked, did we say, that's a bad move? Personally, I didn't. Only Moyes was... Well, even Moyes had defended, to be honest with you. I think that was more out of hope than expectation. But a lot of us were saying, you know, oh yeah, this is a good idea. This manager coming in is a good idea. That makes sense. I don't think many of us were going, why the fuck are we bringing Jose Mourinho into Manchester United at the time?
Some were.
Some were, but, you know, not many. And I think, okay, transfers has been a bit of a disaster. But again, a lot of these transfers at the time made sense. Di Maria, I was buzzing when we bought him. Falcao, I was buzzing when we brought him in. A lot of the other players, you know, the sort of mid-range players, Shaw, Herrera, they all made sense. It's just not been handled properly.
Right, well, let's move on from the man with the stupidest name in the world, Edward Woodward. If you had the surname Woodward, why would you call your son Edward? It makes no sense.
Maybe you're a friend of a fan of the Wicker Man or the Equaliser.
I have no idea what that means, so let's
move
on.
on.
Adam Mckola, tell me, why is the biggest problem at Manchester United the Glazer family?
The Glazers have been leeching from the club before Sir Alex Ferguson left, and they've been an issue from before Sir Alex Ferguson left. The only reason that we were successful in that time after 2005 was because of Sir Alex Ferguson and how good he was. When you look at it back then, when Chelsea was scooping up all the players, Manchester United, yes, we'd occasionally spend a 30 million on Dimitar Berbatov, but we should be able to do that. But more often than not, we're relying on shrewd signings by Sir Alex Ferguson, Park Ji-sung, Edwin van der Sar, even Michael Carrick, 16 million. We didn't spend a whole lot of money. And Fergie was just simply a genius. He squeezed everything out of those teams. Now, he had his part where he covered up for the Glazers as well. And we can't forget that all the value for money stuff. And if he doesn't get into an argument with the Irish fellas that own shares at United, then, you know, the Glazers are never a thing. But whilst he was here, he was protecting them. And his genius meant we could still compete and still win trophies. But we never, ever prepared for his departure. The club never, ever put anything into place, any foundations. The academy, it recently has shown a bit of a resurgence, but even during that time, it was kind of left derelict. You look at around the stadium, around the club, around around Old Trafford, there's been no renovation, no restructuring. We could have increased our stadium. We haven't done that. And under the Glazers, we've really just seen the club stagnate and go backwards. Now, when Sir Alex Ferguson left, they were forced to spend a lot of money, but that was our money. We could always spend that. And I don't think there's been a case now since of whether they spend money, because they clearly do chuck a lot of money at it. Even if you do look at the fact that the last two transfer windows, after we finished second and you kind of felt like, all right, we might be able to build on something, they've brought in Fred Delo, a goalkeeper from Stoke, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Maguire, who was counterbalanced by selling Lukaku, and who else did we bring in? Daniel James, a championship winger, who hopefully will go on to be better, but he came from the championship. So you look at that and you think, are they really spending? They chucked a lot of money at things, but it was all just like throwing enough shit at the wall and hoping some of it sticks. There was never any structure. You look at Manchester City, the way they've spent their money has been very, very clever. They were always preparing for Pep Guardiola. And under the Glazer ownership, we've had no leadership. It has to come from the top. That winning and that, you know, being a success has to come from the top. And you talk about Ed Woodward. Yes, he's not going anywhere because he helped them facilitate buying the club. He's not going anywhere. And he can show numbers to say, look, I'm actually quite good at my job, and try and justify an increase in his wages. He's not going anywhere. But if the Glazers actually cared about the success on the pitch, then they would actually force him to hire someone. They would actually be asking him the question, why is 4-5 managers not succeeding? They would be leading from the front and trying to transform this club so that we are again competing.
Adam, can I ask...
From the middle, it has to come from the top.
Adam, can I ask why the Glazers don't care about what's going on the pitch? I know that you say that the money's still coming in, but surely it's not enough as much money. But it's not as much money.
But what's interesting now is we're hearing the likes of Chevrolet are getting iffy about renewing, or I don't think they're going to renew. So we're going to have to go shopping again for new. And we're going to see the impact that will have on us. And then they might start thinking, okay, we need to put more in to get money out. But you look at the television deals, they're going up. You look at all these things, they're going up. They can still bring in money. And ultimately, like, their bottom line is never going to be affected. They're going to be making money all the time. Look at them, like, you see Ed Woodward kind of reflecting that image, saying, oh, Liverpool still make money, and they have I know they're the European champions at the moment, but when he said this at that time, they weren't competing, and he was saying they still make money. And I think that's how they look at us. New York Yankees still makes money. People go to New York, they'll go and watch New York Yankees. They don't even know what's going on. They'll buy a New York Yankees hat. It's almost becoming a brand. When they talk about us, they talk about us as our competitors are McDonald's and these boys. They don't talk about our competitors are Liverpool and Man City.
Do you know what's
difference?
Do you know what's worrying as well? Liverpool, I mean, I know they've won like European Cups and stuff, but they've not won a league in so long. And this period, I don't feel like they've dropped down as the second biggest club in England. I don't think they've been anywhere near dropped down from that. So that could be the same for United, where we go all these years without winning a league, but still continue our status, and the Glazers are happy.
But the thing is, guys, what's happening now is you got Leicester City, Wolverhampton, you got fucking Spurs.
They're never going to overtake them.
These teams now, you're no longer competing with one or two. Under Sir Alex, we never finished outside the top 3 in the Premier League.
I know.
The Premier League era, like, we never really finished outside the top 3. So, like, since then, we've finished 7th, 6th, all these stupid places. Like, it's mad.
It is mad. You know what is mad as well. When I was a kid, the worst I could envisage United is 3rd place, just because that's all I'd seen. I was like, that year that United finished 3rd, it was like fucking mind blowing to me as a kid.
Well, I vaguely remember us finishing, I think 6th, or whatever it was, or 9th. It might be lower than that actually. No, I remember us finishing 11th. What am I on about? We finished 11th, but we won the FA Cup. I'm pretty sure we finished 11th anyway. I was only about 10. But yeah, listen, I can't argue much what Adam said, because I hate the Glazers and he's right.
But we're forgetting that today. We're not agreeing with Adam.
Purposes of the debate, you can argue that money has been put into the club. It's just been spent badly, and that's not necessarily their fault. You know, we've spent a lot of money in certain transfer windows.
We spend money like a chav that's hit the lotto.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we have wasted. Your analogy about throwing shit at a wall and seeing it stick, I get where you're coming from in that. But there has been money spent. I think we've spent the 3rd most amount of money in the last 10 years or something out of all the Premier League clubs or something like that. And I think you have to look at, other than just the owners, you have to look at how that money's been spent and why are some of these contracts that players are on as well been given out. We've given out players and managers contracts that are either at the end of their career, on the verge of being sacked, or both. And we've given them massive money, and then we can't get rid of him. You've got players that are nowhere near the standard we need them to be, playing at Manchester United and earning 250k a week or whatever it is, and we can't get rid of him because no one else is going to pay him that wage. They're on a long-term deal, so they'd be mad to leave. So we're just stuck with him. We're even in a position now where I watch Champions League football and I see Manchester United players playing for other teams and we're paying their wages.
Oh, it's mad, isn't it?
I hate the Glazers, but that's not the Glazers' fault, that particular problem. That's just bad management.
Howson, what I say out on the Glazers?
Yeah, the Glazers have been an issue. It's not even until they spend more on transfers than they have on debt. The fact that they've spent more on debt than we'd ever see on transfers is a joke. United have had over $1.5 billion drained out of us for nothing, for the name change on the top of a bit of paper where it says Manchester United ownership. That's it. Now, yes, they're going to sit there and just watch the money come in, because as far as they're concerned, they don't see this as the football club we see it. They see this as an investment. I bought that. It appreciates. It makes me money. It's like buying a house and renting it out as far as they're concerned. That is it. So while they aren't blameless in any of this whatsoever, the guy they've left in charge is the problem. The guy that they've let give the keys to and gone, you're the CEO. You're the guy that makes all the decisions. Now, they could say to him, we want to do better because we'll make more money. But like I said, they can also turn around and say to him, you spent $1 billion in 6 years, you dickhead, what are you doing? Exactly. You look at some of the money that's been spent at other clubs. Look at, like Adam just mentioned, Leicester and Wolves. They've managed to impart a philosophy into those teams. Have they spent $1 billion to do that? No, they fucking haven't. If we had a better plan and a better man in charge at the top, whether that was David Gill or fucking Mr. Bean, right? We would have a better philosophy going forward and we would have half a chance of doing something. But we've got Ed Woodward who signs vanity signings because they make him have a spine-tingling sensation because he's a fucking helmet. This is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a man who puts himself more important than hiring a director of football that actually knows what the fuck they're doing and he's going to get some stuff over the line. We signed 2 players this summer. Dan James is a bit of a surprise, right? And if that's going to be a future philosophy, then happy days, because I like what that kind of represents. But we signed Harry Maguire and we signed Wan-Bissaka for market value. There was no bargains to be had there. How far did you have to scout? You watch one match of the day and you're like, well, they're pretty fucking good players, aren't they?
Just say, Howson, I saw something yesterday on Twitter that we sent something like 32 scouts in 30 countries looking for a right back, and we settled on the statistically best right back in the league with fucking playing in.
For 50 million, for what
to
they
watch
wanted
fucking
for
match of the day and scout Wan-Bissaka, couldn't you?
Mate, you could ask me, and I would have told you to sign him, and I don't know what I'm fucking on about.
Where's the little hidden gems that are out there? Don't tell me that Manchester United can't sign them. Yes, Manchester United probably get quoted a different price to any other club that calls up. That's our cross that we've got to bear. But you can't tell me that there's not players out there playing at Benfica and Porto and Sporting and Lyon and Cagliari and places like that wouldn't do a better fucking job than Ashley Young. Wrong.
Howson, yes or no? I knew he'd get that in there somewhere. Howson, right? Yes or no? Is it possible for Manchester United to win the Premier League again with the Glazers in charge?
Yes.
Okay.
Because we've already won with the Glazers in charge.
Interesting.
We've had Woodward in charge. That's the key.
I think maybe Fergie was an anomaly, but who knows? Who knows? The future will bear all. Jay, now it's up to you, mate, to argue that actually Glazers aren't a problem. Ed Woodward's
Champions League with the Glazers in charge.
Yeah, with Fergie as a genius, but
keep throwing with Ed Woodward in charge.
Right. So. Come on then, Jay. You don't think it's the Glazers, do you? You think they're sound. You think Ed Woodward's mint, he's your mate. And you think Solskjaer's scum of the earth and we need to get rid of him.
You've just actually made my argument for me. No, listen, I hate the Glazers, I hate Ed Woodward. But I think our most important issue now, our biggest problem is winning football matches. You could change the owners today and you could sack Ed Woodward this morning and it ain't going to change the result on Sunday against the Scousers. Our most important thing is winning some football matches. And the biggest problem we've got at the minute is our manager and our players aren't doing that and they don't seem capable of doing that against even mediocre teams. Our form has been shocking for 9 months now, 7 months now. I don't like doing a whole calendar year Arsenal thing, but sometimes you have to admit that the end of last season was terrible. Ollie said, give me a pre-season, let me work with these players, let me get my style implemented and all the rest of it. We did that. This season, we've had a good result against Chelsea, a good result against Leicester, and other than that, we've been pretty poor. You know, we got a draw against I thought a really poor Arsenal side. We've been beaten at home by Crystal Palace. We've been beaten away by West Ham. We've been beaten away by Newcastle. You know, yes, you can look at the Glazers and the economics and why we're not investing in the team and all the rest of it, but you should be able to get a team out that can get a point at St James's. You should be able to put a team together that can get a point at home to Crystal Palace. And Ollie and the players have got to take some responsibility. It's no good just pivoting all the time going, oh, it's the Glazers, it's Woodward. If you're a Manchester United player, you should be able to put in a performance that's good enough to challenge against the likes of Crystal Palace. And a lot of players just aren't doing that. And you have to ask, why is that? We're hearing all these rumours. I don't know if they're true. A lot of players aren't happy with training. They think it's too British. They're questioning the coaching methods.
What does that even mean?
God knows.
Brexit means Brexit.
Just
Exactly,
like Yorkshire
exactly.
puddings everywhere.
We're going a bit Brexit United, aren't we? Let's buy British players and our coaching methods are British. I don't know what that's about. But you have to look at it and you say, yes, listen, I love Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I'm not saying we should get rid of him at all. I think the problems are far deeper than that. But we have to look at him. He has to be culpable for what is going on. It is poor performances. It is terrible results. And it's players that just look all at sea. Marcus Rashford, I've never seen him play so badly as he is now. And I rate Marcus Rashford. Why are we relying on Mason Greenwood? Why have we got players that have gone out and we've not replaced them? Yes, you can blame Woodward and the Glazers, but the manager's got to have a say in that. The manager must have said somewhere along the line, I don't want Romelu Lukaku, I don't want Alexis Sanchez, which is fine, but then to not bring any of them in, anyone else in, is crazy. The first thing he did was get rid of Fellaini, and I'm not Fellaini's biggest fan, but if you're going to get rid of him, bring someone in to replace him. We haven't signed a midfielder since Fellaini left. We've only signed obvious defenders that for big money. And okay, Daniel James, who's a bit of a gem. I don't know if Ollie spotted him or whatever, but we got him, that's good. But the manager's got to take some responsibility. And the biggest problem we've got right now, facing us, is getting a result against the Scousers. And it doesn't matter if you blame Ed Woodward or you blame the Glazers. They can't do anything about that right now. That's down to the manager. And my confidence in the manager, I'm sorry to say, is wearing thin. I love Ollie, absolute legend, but if we're being honest, he's up against it and there's no signs at the minute that he can turn it around, and I think that is the biggest problem we've got. And yet, we rate all these players, we think they're all great and all the rest of it, but Paul Pogba's out of the team, we're absolutely struggling. But sometimes when he's in the team, we're still struggling. Anthony Martial's out of the team and we're struggling. Sometimes we're still struggling when he's in the team. We think the injuries are the problem. They're not necessarily. Martial and Pogba could come back in and we can still get dicked off the Scousers. We've got to be honest about it. We're just not where we need to be, and the manager has to take some responsibility for that. So that's why it's our biggest problem at the minute.
Obviously, the results are worse, but is the football worse right now than it was under Jose and Louis van Gaal?
Yes.
But that period
Right
when
now
Ollie
it is.
first got the job temporarily, that was the best football we saw since Ferguson.
We've seen the Cardiff game, the first game where we won 5-1, right? Amazing. Everyone pressing, everyone getting forward. Pogba like he was almost like a striker. Everyone bombing forward. Great to watch. You love to see it and all the rest of it, right? You fast forward to the last game of the season. Cardiff, what was it? 2-0 at home. Our best player, 17-year-old Mason Greenwood. Everyone else was shite. You've got to blame the manager for that. I'm sorry. You can't just say, oh, it was not my fault, the Glazers. Who picked the fucking team? Who's telling them what to do? You are. You have to take responsibility. Then after that, you say, give me a pre-season. You've had one, and we're still rubbish.
Adam, what do you say to that, pal?
I think, like, when I hear, like, I think Ollie's I'm not sure about Ollie. I wasn't sure about giving him the job at the time anyway.
No.
But in regards to the squad, when I hear, this squad finished second under Jose, this squad did this in those 13 foot, this squad isn't that squad. It isn't what it was 6 months ago. It isn't what it was 12 months ago. This squad has lost Herrera, Fellaini, Sanchez, Lukaku, Darmian, all sorts of players. Now, look, most of them we didn't want at the club. That's fine. The problem was we didn't replace them. And that's why I feel like, I know Ollie's coming out and saying, you know, I didn't want to sign anyone or whatever, but I think that's absolute bollocks. I really think that is. And I think he's known all along that we were going to get rid of Lukaku. And I think ultimately that comes down to the speed and the efficiency that Woodward's working at. And as a result, the Glazers, because Woodward's there, man.
Howson, on paper, where should this United team be finishing? I know there's a lot of youngsters that are relatively unproven, so maybe an unfair question.
Ask him where he's predicted.
On paper, probably top 6, but
right.
Does the paper account for the injuries we've had?
I know, but
Because
everyone gets injuries,
you take
don't they,
out Pogba, Marshall, and you take out our best defender, best midfielder, and best attacker, and expect it to be fucking good. You're off your head.
I know, but man, every team gets injuries every now and then, man. And Pogba, when as Jay
Manchester
says,
City,
Pogba put in a 2 out of 10 against
40,
Rochdale, man.
44 quadrillion spent on it this week. If they lost Vincent Kompany, they would fucking crumble. And we lose best defender, best midfielder, best attacker.
They did lose
and we're
Vincent
relying
Kompany.
on 22-year-old Scott McTominay, 21-year-old Marcus Rashford, 17-year-old Mason Greenwood, and you expect it to compete in what's the best league in the world, supposedly, the most competitive. You're fucking twisted,
City
man.
lost Vincent Kompany and had Kevin De Bruyne injured for large periods of last season, and Sergio Aguero, and still won the league.
You're right. We've lost players, and you are right. I agree we've lost our best defender, best midfielder, best attacker, but we still can't get a win against Rochdale unless it's penalties. We still can't get a win against teams I'd literally never even fucking heard of until earlier this, so we got drawn against them, or we're scraping a win, sorry, against the Standard.
Pronounced Arsenal. Get used to it.
Yeah, sorry. And you know, the result, you're just watching just poor performance again. Crystal Palace come to Old Trafford and get a win against us. How is that okay?
Yeah.
Steve Bruce, they were shouting Bruce out before our game, and they beat us relatively comfortably, if we're honest. It wasn't like a smash and grab result. Do you know what I mean? I didn't really think we were ever going to win that game. So yeah, I think sometimes you've got, yes, I agree with everything you're saying about them Muppets upstairs, but you know, it's just more than that, innit?
Right, we're doing 30-second round. 30 seconds to summarise your argument. Then, for some reason, I'll decide who's won. Howson, let's start with you, mate. 30 seconds to tell me why Ed Woodward is the biggest problem at Manchester United. Go.
United have been successful while the Glazers have been there. They've not been successful while Ed Woodward has been in charge. Do you really think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wanted to strip out half of the squad and not replace it? You're off your fucking head. The biggest problem is how slow, how inefficient, and how self-important Ed Woodward is. He's not a good businessman. He's not a football man. He is a Glazer stooge. And while there's culpability in both Solskjaer and the Glazers, the big problem's Ed Woodward.
Amazing. He did it in 25 seconds. Very impressive, very efficient. Adam, 30 seconds to tell me why the Glazers are the worst thing at Manchester United right now. Go.
Ultimately, if something's going on in your house, you're responsible for it. This is the Glazers is a Manchester United's property, and they need to be responsible for what's going on in it. They've got an employee who isn't running the ship properly and isn't being as successful as he can be, then they need to take responsibility for that as well. And ultimately, I think it comes from the top down. This has been coming since 2005. This has been coming since we weren't competing with Chelsea. We weren't competing with City. And even during the Ferguson era, we were relying on his genius and not preparing for when he eventually left. Yes, we spent money since, but they've been throwing it around.
Well done, right, good stuff all around, right, that was really condescending then, well done.
Oh yeah.
Jay, 30 seconds, really good luck for you here, mate, 30 seconds to tell me why Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is crap, shy, and no longer a Manchester United legend.
6-year contract.
I'm joking, someone's watching this thinking I'm serious, right, I'm joking.
Yeah, I apologise. Right, listen.
30 seconds, go.
Right, I agree with what the lads have said, but ultimately it doesn't matter. If you're a manager of Manchester United Football Club, you should be able to beat Huddersfield, arguably the worst Premier League team I've ever seen. You should be able to get a result at home to Cardiff, to be able to beat Rochdale within 90 minutes. You should be able to beat Alkmaar, you know what I mean, those Dutch giants that we barely ever heard of. You should be able to get more than, 2 wins out of 12. You should be able to beat Wolves at 3 times of asking, at least get 1 result against them. He hasn't been able to do that. The football now is as bad as it was under Louis van Gaal or David Moyes, and that's saying something. And you have to look at the manager. It's his fault.
Oh, it's all his fault, says Jay. Make sure we clip that up and put that on all socials.
Ollie, I'm sorry.
Jay said he loves the Glazers. Did you hear that, guys?
This is it, man. I'm fucked.
Do you know what the most depressing thing about this debate is?
I'm going to get chinned in the straight on Sunday.
The most depressing thing about this debate is usually, like, you can finish it and be like, right, this person's right, but what this has convinced me is that you're all kind of right in your own way.
Yeah, I'm not even listening. I'm arguing for all. I'd be shocked if he chose me.
There's certain things that you said, though, isn't there, that are right, you know, the tactics and where we are in the table. I mean, it's like, obviously, I think the biggest problem at United is the Glazers. I mean, I do think that. And I think that there wouldn't be a Woodward problem if there wasn't a Glazers problem. But I do quite like a few of the points that Howson made about how we can be successful even with the Glazers. But I just think that was with the genius that is Sir Alex Ferguson and David Gill as well. And I don't think we're going to see those likes again in football, not just at Manchester United.
Spectacles with that one, you know.
Yeah, we didn't really like him at the time, did we?
A lot of players for us, you know.
Well, anyway, I'm going to say today's winner is Howson. Because I think that we all know the Glazers are the biggest problem, and there wouldn't be a problem with Woodward if it wasn't for the Glazers. But I like some of the points that were made. So yes, Woodward, the biggest problem at Man United.
I'm glad I lost that debate.
Yeah, you weren't going to win that. You weren't going to win.
I didn't want to win that debate. Yeah, I hate the Glazers and I hate Ed Woodward, and I don't hate Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Clip that bit up of Jay just ripping Solskjaer's
Yeah.
Don't you do
send it.
That'll be in our WhatsApp group later, going out to everyone.
Right, guys, get in the comments below. Let us know what you think the biggest problem at United is. Also, what you think of the guys' arguments, if they made any points you found interesting, if they said anything you disagree with. Get it in the comments below. Subscribe, give this video a like, and we'll see you next time in a bit. Laters.